Why not sell the house? Why not sell the company? Why not sell the bikes, the cars, the motorbikes, the quads, the kids' toys, the clothes, holiday home, everything, and just go all into Bitcoin? If it goes times 3, 4, 5, maybe we can keep thriving all alive. And if it goes to 0, we will find a new job and we will build up everything that we lost. If we get 10% of all those other, the real estate, the stocks and everything into Bitcoin, we might have.
This episode of Supply Shock is brought to you by Ledn, a proud Bitcoin-only company and the global leader in Bitcoin-backed lending. Need cash but don't want to sell down your Bitcoin stack? Ledn has a trusted track record in providing liquidity. That's Ledn. You'll hear more about them later in this episode. As always, investments in blockchain technology involve risk. Terms and conditions may apply. Do your own research. Quick reminder, nothing said on Supply Shock is a recommendation to buy or sell any investment or product. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and the views expressed by anyone on the show are solely their opinions, not financial advice or necessarily the views of Blockworks. Our hosts, guests, and the Blockworks team may hold positions in the company's funds or projects discussed. Hey everybody, welcome to the Supply Shock podcast. Pete Rizzo, the Bitcoin historian on X. We've got a special show for you today. We've got Didi Taihuttu, a legend of the Bitcoin space and the Bitcoin history, famous for having sold his house to purchase Bitcoin all the way back in the mid-aughts, the mid-2010s, now riding high with the Bitcoin family. You may have read about them in CNBC, Bloomberg, and other publications, covered widely now for their travels about the globe, promoting and evangelizing Bitcoin. And of course, happy all-time highs. We're happy to have him here. Didi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for that awesome introduction. Yes, Bitcoin all-time high, 122K. It's an amazing day to be alive again. Thank you for the invite. And yeah, I'm happy. And I was looking forward already for a couple of weeks to do this interview and have an amazing chat because I love what you're doing for the space. I love your Twitter account, X account, I should say. Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you for having me.
We go to all caps as soon as we get to all-time highs, you know. We gotta get the people going. Well, so let's talk about that. The Bitcoin market, this bull market, a little different from what we've seen. So you started all the way back in 2013. So you're maybe from my generation in Bitcoin. It felt like it was happening back then, right? I remember watching the price hit $1,000 and it seemed crazy. I remember feeling like I had missed out. There was never a chance for me to get back in. Now it's 120,000. Many people feel the same. So maybe we can start there with your thoughts.
I think a lot of people start to look at Bitcoin more as something for the rich people, I think the 2017 and 21 bull markets were still retail driven, where a lot of people could still afford one Bitcoin, paying 20K or 30K, and it was still a possibility. But in the last 3 years of inflationary economy and everything, people just got poor and they can't afford 120,000. So institutions are slowly taking over again. And, that's where the saying comes from. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer because, they don't play the game at the right moment. You and I started in 2013. I started mining back then when Bitcoin still was like $80 to $90. And I rode that whole 1200 bull market. I went, wow, I also saw the crash to 200. I was, oh, shit. It was a roller coaster ride. And I think it's different. It's not a different bull market. For me, it feels the same as 2017 again, with a blow off top towards the end of this year. I think the 2021 was a different one. The double top, the distribution top, that was a little bit different than the
2021 was a bit of a fight, a bit of a slog.
Yeah, that was a different bull market. But now, everything looks beautiful for the end of this year, a new bull market top.
Well, let's get back to that. I really do want to dig into the history. That's what this podcast is about. So 2013, you got involved. I read a number of the interviews you've done over the years, but we'll recap some of the basics for folks. So how did you start mining at Bitcoin at $80? This would have been, May, April of 2013. I imagine the Silk Road was kind of, the big story that I remember at the time. Mt. Gox, still the big exchange. Maybe you can tell people a little bit about the color and the community and what were some of your first experiences in Bitcoin.
At that time, I wasn't even looking at Bitcoin. I had a huge educational company with around 40 employees. I had 700 square meters of office space. And from a school, an IT school, this guy comes from an internship. And he wants to do an internship in my computer store. I also had a computer store. And he's like, I want to prove I can create money with electricity in the form of Bitcoin. I'm like, Bitcoin? He said, what are you talking about? But I was a really busy guy at that moment. I'm like, man, I don't want to do it. Just do whatever you want. I'm going to build a miner and, like a motherboard with the graphical cards and all that shit. I'm going to build a Bitcoin miner and will prove for my status that I can mine money. I said, let's do it. Let's do it. In the evening, I sat down at home. I was reading his proposal. I'm like, what is this? And that's when first time I looked at the white paper. I'm like, oh shit, this is something really interesting. This is like the digital revolution of money. I'm like, maybe I missed the internet boom. Maybe I can join this one. So I told the guy, do it. So we built his first miner and with all the parts from the store, and he started to mine Bitcoin. We joined this pool at that moment. I think it was Ant Pool or something that we were mining with, and we hit a block. We earned some money, and he came after a week. And he said, "Didi, look, we earned a little bit of money already." I said, "What?" He said, "If you put more miners there, what does it mean?" He's like, "Yeah, more chance, more money." And at that moment, I was a really materialistic guy. I was in it for the money. I was like, "Okay, this is really cool." So we cleaned up one complete space, like 30 square meters. We started to build shitloads of miners, and he just started to do the mining. We had heating problems and all that stuff, but we started to earn really money with bitcoins with that mining. And I was really, at that moment, it became so interesting to me that I really started to deep dive more and more into it. And then I started to understand. I then started to find Silk Road and all that stuff, and you could really use it online. And then you get sucked into it, and then you start to understand that this is going to change the world, because this is the first time that people are creating money instead of governments, and the first time I can send the money to my nephew on the Moluccan Islands without anyone being able to be in between. So yeah, one-on-one was two for me in that time, and then was like, yeah, this is going to be big. And that's when we went like all in the mining business and everything. But yeah, that was the start. 2013 was amazing.
Well, did you really have? I think back to myself, right? I had a journalism background, right? So I lacked the economics component and the computer science component. I had to learn that kind of like the hard way through just like learning the news and kind of understanding Bitcoin over time. Did you have an economics background or a computer science background, or were you also going into it kind of fresh, more for the?
No, I studied higher economics, and so that was my profession was higher economics. It was just not my passion to always talk about economy. My passion was in educating people in the usage of computers, and
Mm.
that's why I didn't use a higher economics like the diploma for a job, but I did, of course, use it to run a business. But my passion has always been like IT. It was just, when the first internet was there with the cracky 56K modem, shit. That's when I had my first internet access with a DVD and all that. That's when I got hooked to the possibilities. But I was a very young kid, so I could not invest. And then when Bitcoin came, I was, of course, older, more successful. I had an up and running business. I had money saved. So, wow, I could make some steps. And that's why I did it at that time.
With the mining operation in 2013, I think back the stories. A lot of people made it big. A lot of people lost big. I remember the mining companies, doing pre-orders, selling these machines for 10, 15 Bitcoin. They were never delivered. So for every big success story, there's an equal tragedy. How long did you run the mining operation? Did you make the leap from GPUs to ASICs? Did that kind of fold into 2014, or did you kind of keep mining through that first bear market?
No, we kept mining, but when we had the first bear market, it was not like it was not profitable anymore for us to mine Bitcoin. So that is when we switched to mining Dogecoin. I think
Oh, okay.
I mined more than 26 million Dogecoin in the first 2 years, and then 2015 end. That is when I gave up on all the businesses, because that was the moment that my father told me he had cancer and he had only more year to live. And then for me, it was okay. I'm gonna focus, zoom out of the business. I hired the manager, and he didn't like the mining. He ran the company, and I started to focus on my family. And he had one more year, so I didn't care about Bitcoin mining, nothing at all, until he died. Until he died in 2016, that is when my interest and my passion came back again.
So with the switch from Bitcoin mining to Dogecoin, this was very common. A lot of big early Bitcoiners, they bought a bunch of machines. GPUs are expensive. They started mining Bitcoin, found that very quickly, so did 100,000 other people. Some moved over to Litecoin, some moved over to Dogecoin. I think they were merge mined even for a bit. What was your interest in Dogecoin, and how has that changed or waned over time as you've understood more about the technology? They call it the hodler's dilemma. Ever wish you could get access to cash without selling down your stack? Well, Ledn makes that possible. Since 2018, Ledn has issued over $9 billion worth of Bitcoin-backed loans, and they haven't lost a single Satoshi of client funds in the process. There are no credit checks. You can get funds in under 12 hours and repay whenever you want with zero penalties. Unlike others Ledn doesn't lend out your collateral. They even publish biannual proof of reserves verified by top auditors in the blockchain. You can learn more at ledn.io. That's LEDN.io. As always, investments in blockchain technology involve risk. Terms and conditions may apply. Do your own research.
So at that time, when I switched to Dogecoin, I was still in it for the revolution. For me, it was like, how do we get connection with all those people that are in it for this peaceful, anarchistic revolution to change the world and to take the control on money back to the people? And I found it in the Doge forums and everything. A lot of people were talking about that, the same mindset, but
Like the
also
original meme coin, like with the degen culture, right? Like,
exactly, but they had fun. And that's why I just started to mine that one, and it was profitable and supported. And
remember the tip bots on Reddit? You would go to our Dogecoin and they would have, everybody would be upvoting everyone.
exactly, that is exactly, and that was just a very exciting time because it was new, and it was I remember I sold my last Dogecoins in the previous bull market, because then we almost hit that $1 that we all were dreaming of. Like
Oh, so you actually held until the Elon pump.
The last 2 million I sold at 60 cents. Yeah, that was to me okay. The rest was already sold way earlier, man. I sold 1 million Dogecoin, I think, for 4K or something in 2019. Yeah.
A lot of what we talk about on the show is kind of, people who kind of made the jump to Bitcoin maximalism, or this idea that Bitcoin is, pulling away from the other cryptocurrencies. Obviously, you have a lot of experience here, kind of navigating this in a personal level. So 2016, you get back into Bitcoin. You have this kind of personal loss, this family loss, and you decided to make the sale of your house, right? So you sold the house, ended up with around 100 Bitcoin. This would have been really hard to do, right? There wasn't a lot of confidence in Bitcoin at the time. This would have been at the end of a bear market. How did you find it to do that? I mean, I think right now I've even taken out a loan to buy Bitcoin, and it makes me nervous even today, even as much as I know about everything. So I'm curious, like, how did you build that conviction, and then how did you get your family on board?
So at that time, we were already traveling, because when my father died, after that, we decided I got a huge burnout, massive burnout, and I needed to reset mentally, physically. So we went on a trip. And during the trip, people started to call me, do you still own the Bitcoins and your Dogecoins and everything? The price is going up. And I was like, man, I'm on the beach, leave me alone. But they kept calling, texting. And that's when I first looked into Bitcoin again, during the trip that we had in Thailand at that moment. And then on Bali, I just decided that my family, we want to keep living this life this way. We are very happy just traveling. Let's just focus on life and don't give a fuck about money anymore. Become minimalist family without anything, not owning anything, travel lightly all over the world, enjoy each other's love and everything. And that is when I called my sister. I said, check my laptop, it's in the safe. Check my that's what the Doge wallet was on. And I checked at that moment still a paper wallet.
Yeah,
we had a paper wallet. So check my paper wallet for the Bitcoin address and everything. And then I said, wow, I'm able to pay back the whole trip that we made of 7 months in Asia with the profits a little bit. And I'm like, wow, this is going to go crazy. And that's when I sat on the beach. I told my wife, either we take a step now or we keep running the hamster wheel forever. So why not sell the house? Why not sell the company? Why not sell the bikes, the cars, the motorbikes, the quads, the kids' toys, the clothes, the holiday home, everything, and just go all into Bitcoin? If it goes times 3, 4, 5, maybe we can keep traveling all alive. And if it goes to 0, we will find a new job and we will build up everything that we lost. And my wife was really fond of that. She was like, yeah, man, I really love this life now. It's really relaxed. You are a different person while you're traveling. You spend a lot of time with your kids. You're not only with your business. And that's why we took the decision in Bali, and we flew home. We put the house for sale at a real estate agent that was a friend of mine. I told him, put on the real estate page, also accepting Bitcoin. And it took like a couple of weeks. And this guy that was working at a huge IT business in Germany, he's calling, I want to buy your house and pay with Bitcoin because I really believe that we can do it. And then we need to figure out in a very creative way how to do it, because the notary at that time, they were not like really agreeing with all of that. So we needed to do a small transaction by bank, and then the rest we could do like not in the same room with the notary. And that's how it happened. It was insane. It was exciting.
So the transaction was actually the buyer as well paid in Bitcoin.
Yes. Partly in Bitcoin and partly in euros at that moment still. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
So
And
you
then
actually came from it from not really thinking about the financial component at all. You weren't really thinking, "Oh, Bitcoin's gonna go a million." For you, it was about the lifestyle and you just
freedom,
sort of continuing that.
just freedom. I just want to have freedom. And I had never felt that freedom feeling before that. I was always running, working, investing more, working harder, investing more, and working harder. You need to work harder every time because, the inflation destroys your purchasing power. So you can invest whatever you want. You work more hours, you get more money, but your purchasing power keeps dropping. So at that moment, I was done. When I saw my father dying with 61, my mother already died when she was 48, I was like, what if I only have like 20 years left or 30 years left? Do I want to run in this office or do I want to enjoy my family? I chose to have kids. Why do I bring them to schools that brainwash them into becoming the next oil for the next company, the Netherlands? Why don't I really enjoy it? And that's, for me, it was completed freedom aspect. And because while we were traveling the first couple of months, we traveled to our roots, the Moluccan Islands and Indonesia, and etc., and we Cambodia and Vietnam. And that was also the first time that I realized the use case of Bitcoin. I'm like, wow, they all can't have a bank account on these islands. They are fishermen. They live off fish and rice. How can I send them money without fees? It's impossible. Bitcoin is doing that. So all of that fell together for me. For me, it was like, wow, this is like insane. This is really going to change it. I can now send $2 to my nephew in the Moluccan Islands, and he can save it up and maybe spend it later. And that was for me so clear at that moment that we just said like, we are all in now. I took my pension fund, I took the savings account of the kids, then we were literally, that was the most exciting point because my wife didn't agree with it. So I was behind the laptop and all the money of the saving account and the kids' savings account and the pension came in and with it was on the laptop and I was like, okay, am I going to push this button now? Then we are really all in. And then we just were all in. We bought all Bitcoins again. And then we started to travel again because all the media drove us crazy.
Right. Yeah. So maybe I want to talk to you a little bit about this because this is something I struggle with. It's interesting that you say that you almost, you were able to kind of activate this different lifestyle as of Bitcoin. I, have even having been in this industry for 12 plus years now, I almost feel more FOMO than ever. Right. I'm sort of feeling like this might be my last, couple of years to even earn another coin. Right. There's even one more coins. So what can I do as a person? What can I do, with what I'm able to do? To get this opportunity because it's true that in a couple of years Bitcoin might be trading over $1 million, and even myself, someone who was there very early, maybe could have just picked up. I think about it all the time. I had the change tip account. I was a journalist. I was too proud to take what was in the change tip, probably half a Bitcoin in there somewhere that was lost forever. So for me, there's this tremendous, kind of feeling where it's like, oh, maybe this is my opportunity, this is my time. How do you counteract that? Because it seems like you were such an entrepreneur, kind of so driven to kind of be successful. How did you turn that up?
Because the moment you realize that like the most important asset is time, and I was forced to realize that because I lost my parents, I didn't have enough time with them. So when you consider that time is the most important thing, you get that simple question that everybody asks in all these stories in your reels nowadays: what do you prefer? Do you prefer $10 million today and not wake up tomorrow, or do you want to wake up tomorrow without a $10 million? And then you realize time is way more precious than money. So if you then realize that you don't give anything about money anymore, that you just like, I'm going to live life no matter what, you lose the fear of losing everything because you will never lose your own skills. I had my skills, I went to school, I had everything I needed to begin again. So if you lose the fear of that, then you start to believe. And I didn't only believe in Bitcoin, that was my belief was like really, really strong in the beginning. Um, I also believed in myself. If it would go wrong, I would provide again in a different way for my family. And if you have such a strong belief in yourself, your wife, your kids, and in Bitcoin, then you don't have any fear of taking those steps anymore. And for me, it was very clear Bitcoin was going to be the biggest asset in the world. There was no doubt, still no doubt on my mind that Bitcoin is going to be bigger than everything because every economy takes time to refresh, let's say like that. And we always have ups and downs in the economy. But we can see that the downs are becoming bigger for a lot of people. And the more people get poorer and poorer and poorer, the more people have the need for something new, something financial freedom. And that can also help them become rich, but that also can help them distribute the wealth that they make. And I think that there was just zero doubt for me about Bitcoin. And that's when yeah, it's all about what on my shirt. It's all about to be or not to be. And that's when you go hardcore in, and then it's when you sell around the first top, when you buy back around the first bottom, and then you sell again around the second top, you buy, so you multiply your Bitcoins, and then you go fully into the industry because of your brand, they call you the Bitcoin family. So that
So you were doing trading as well that
I was addicted. 2017, I gained like 19 kilos by just sitting behind a laptop and trading 24/7. My wife was like, dude, look in the mirror. You're like getting fat. Like,
Well, I remember 2017, right? And that's always what amazed me about your story is I remember 2017 being the year where there was almost the most kind of doom and gloom around Bitcoin specifically, because I remember being at conferences and every Silicon Valley VC, had a startup with a new coin, and they're all sort of touting these as the next Bitcoin, the next big thing. And back then they were directly saying it, that they intended to compete and replace Bitcoin. And it also felt like, every couple days some new coin came out. I remember watching like Ant Shares, which became Neo, a couple pennies, all of a sudden, the kid who does, the CoinDesk, data, he's driving like a new Lamborghini to work. He hit a couple of these ICOs. So how did you like see through the mist of what was going on there? Because I think it was hard to have conviction in Bitcoin specifically, even if you believed in cryptocurrency broadly.
I think I was lucky that I, at that moment, was seen as a Bitcoin maximalist. And because of that, I built myself a brand that I am a Bitcoin maximalist. I didn't want to have to do with all of that. I just wanted to be Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. It was until, I think, 2017, I think it was December or something, I went to Las Vegas, to one of the Litecoin summits. I was invited by Litecoin to talk about Bitcoin. So I was, okay, if I can talk on the stage in Vegas about Bitcoin on the Litecoin summit, I will do it. And that's when I also started a little bit diversify into Litecoin. But for me, it was just for me, the clear thing was that Bitcoin was created by someone that nobody knew. It was completely decentralized, and all the other projects I saw just as a sort of crowdfunding. Somebody is making that, somebody is creating that. I need to trust that person. No, I don't want to trust it. I want to trust mathematics. I want to trust the systems, mining Bitcoin. I want to trust that was what I believe in, and that's when I became a full retard Bitcoin maxi, until the 2020 bull market, where I started to also invest in other projects, because you know what it is? When the capital starts to grow tremendously, there's always the fear in your head, should I start to diversify? So we have been living now for 8 years unbanked. We still don't have any bank accounts. My kids don't have bank accounts. My wife, we have 0 bank accounts. So for us to invest in the normal world is impossible, because I need a bank account. So the only thing I could do in diversifying my capital was choosing certain projects that I thought would decentralize the world in a way that I would support as the Bitcoin family. And that is what we started to do. We just started to support a lot of ICOs, IDOs, IEOs that we thought of, okay, they are replacing the notaries, they are replacing the lawyers, they are replacing, whatever it was. And that is the only thing we could do. And that was also the moment when the industry became toxic. They said, you're a shitcoiner, you're also investing in shitcoins. And I told them, guys, for me is one clear rule. The moment you own a bank account, you're the shitcoiner. That is the biggest shitcoin ever, not backed by anything, not even a white paper, your euro, your dollar, any other fiat currency. That is a shitcoin. I keep supporting the decentralization revolution, and I stay in crypto. So yes, you can call me a shitcoiner. I'm still a Bitcoin maximalist when it comes to replacing the monetary system, maybe becoming a new world currency. But when it comes to investing, I can't invest in real estate because I don't have a bank account. I can't invest in stocks, bonds. I don't have a bank account.
Let's take a quick break to talk about today's sponsor, Ledn, the most trusted name in Bitcoin-backed lending. Look, if you're like me, you never really want to think about selling your Bitcoin. Ledn has a solution. You can borrow against your Bitcoin. No credit checks, no monthly payments, no hidden fees. You can get your cash in under 12 hours and pay back when you want with 0 penalties. Unlike other platforms, Ledn has a history of transparency. They prove it with independent proof of reserves audits every 6 months on the blockchain. In total, they've issued more than $9 billion in loans without losing a single Satoshi of client funds. That's the kind of track record you want when it comes to securing your Bitcoin. You can learn more. Visit ledn.io. That's ledn.io. As always, investments in blockchain technology involve risk. Terms and conditions may apply. Do your own research. You see how most of the interest in the crypto side of the space is just it's practical. Some of these they solve actual kind of use case problems. Can you talk about some of the maybe the other kind of crypto services that you've used where you're like, okay, this solves a problem for my family that's living unbanked?
I firstly started to invest a lot of in exchanges because I really understood, because I traded, I really understood that could really improve. So I started in centralized exchanges, afterwards also in decentralized exchanges. And afterwards, then like projects like Chainlink came, that really made very clear to me, if you want to connect all the databases worldwide, all that data with the blockchain, there needs to be some project that will make it possible to connect the library, the physical library, into the blockchain. And that's the projects that I chose at that moment, those that really connected to me and to my knowledge, because I didn't have knowledge of everything, but everything that I could really relate to the physical world on the blockchain. That is what I really loved. So I started to invest a lot of educational platforms because I really think education in the world is terrible, that the kids get really brainwashed into being uh, things that we don't want to need, that we don't need in the future. So I started to do that. A lot of educational platforms. I made a lot of mistakes. I will never forget. There was one company from Australia that said we are going to decentralize um, the windmill facilities between Australia and Bali and put windmills in the sea. And then, that was a big scam at the end.
There were a lot of big ones at the time. So, well, yeah, this is actually, I think, an important cultural schism within the Bitcoin maximalist community because I think even amongst Bitcoin maximalists, and I've tried to write about this and talk about this, that there are some people, and you can see this in the culture today, especially around the Bitcoin treasury companies, which we'll probably get into, where it seems like some Bitcoin maximalists kind of want the state to come in and say, Bitcoin is special and unique. The strategic Bitcoin reserve, I think, is a good example of that. Whereas I think other, maybe Bitcoiners who are maybe more on the libertarian side, anti-government, they just want Bitcoin to win through market competition, and they'd like to see Bitcoin maybe advance as a technology. So it sounds like you're more on that kind of second side of you want Bitcoin to compete and maybe not rely on the regulators for some sort of special privilege.
Yeah, definitely. I was when I read the news the first time a couple of years ago that BlackRock was entering the space. I knew that was not good for Bitcoin's freedom aspect, for decentralization. I did also understand, hey, this is going to pump my back. You're always in between. Yeah, my Bitcoins are going to be more valuable, okay, but I don't like it because it's going to take away my freedom. So I was always in between this one. I realized that it was never be good for decentralization, but on the other hand, I really understood, yeah, for the adoption for the normal people, it is okay. And that is the problem. Like, we as a family, we are unbanked, so our mindset is always in how do I survive unbanked, and how do I solve a situation without using banks. So because we do that, you get like in this funnel of just Bitcoin. Other people are not living in that funnel. Even all the influencers in this industry, the biggest influencers, I call them shitcoiners, because they all have bank accounts. They have bank accounts. They have bank accounts. They're gonna buy real estate. They are supporting the system that we started to fight. Bitcoin was invented for me to fight the centralized system after the bailout. So for me, that's still the thought in my head. Maybe I'm very old-fashioned. Maybe I should give up on this peaceful anarchistic dream that I still have, and maybe you know, a lot of people tell me to give up, and then I tell them, yeah, but you guys don't have kids. I want to leave behind a beautiful world for my children where they have freedom, where they don't are registered in a central bank's digital currency system, where they can't do whatever they want because they will freeze their account or confiscate. That's why I started to believe in Bitcoin, not because like those that forced you to wear masks and all that shit in the 2000 pandemic. Are now buying into Bitcoin. So for me, it's a very difficult situation, and we have a lot of discussions as a family of that. And my wife also tells me, "Is it not really now? We have so much. Is it really still that we don't want to own a house? Do we still not want to own a car?" But for me, it's just not. I don't want to give up yet. I don't want to give up. I just hope that people start to understand the real fundamentals, the true power of Bitcoin, and that is really not becoming the new rich guy's playful tool. It's a freedom tool. It's a freedom tool, and it's not only the Bitcoin as a Bitcoin, but it's also the technology. People need to start to realize that because of the blockchain technology, um, like I always say, peaceful anarchistic systems, which is sounds really negative to a lot of people, but it's just a political dream that people can do anonymous proposals and voting in a way that it can't be interfered by a government. That is now possible. It has never been possible. We couldn't do that with SQL or Access or any other database because it was a centralized control. Blockchain, there is no centralized control. We can now vote on a proposal from Zimbabwe to Amsterdam to New York, and we can all vote on that without anyone being able to stop it or change it or adjust it afterwards. So for me, that's the future.
So there are a lot of technologists in Bitcoin, obviously, who sympathize with your vision. They want to work to providing those kind of freedom, what they consider kind of freedom technologies. I would say was a whole kind of movement emerging over the last couple of years. The Bitcoin kind of season two crowd that was trying to take a lot of these kind of crypto ideas, build them on Bitcoin. We've seen some success there, some setbacks, kind of a sense that maybe their the current infrastructure can't compete there. I know you mentioned that you invest and kind of look at kind of early stage opportunities. Was that a market you looked at? How do you feel about what happened with ordinals and Bitcoin assets and all that stuff?
Yeah, I did do some audios and everything, but that's also to support the developers, of course, in this industry because people need to understand it's all about building. Bitcoin was not like built in 2009. Bitcoin was built in the 20 years before that. All of the people and the contributors to the SHA shares and everything that was already way before. So Bitcoin was just there in 2009, but that is now again happening. If we want to have the Bitcoin blockchain evolve to the one and only system that really is going to replace currencies, but also other decentralization of the world, then we need to support those teams that are building. And some will succeed and some will fail. But that's the same with investing in real life. Sometimes you invest in a startup and they fail. Sometimes they succeed. But now it's always called a scam. No, it's not a scam. They tried, they didn't succeed, give them another shot. Through failing, you learn. And that's what people need to start to realize. Also in the Bitcoin industry, in the blockchain industry, yes, some startups will fail, but they have learned a really important lesson and maybe they build back stronger. And by each and every step that those companies and those people become more confident in building back stronger, we build something at the end that really will work. It was also not like Bitcoin, it was not directly working. We had so many other examples like eCash and Bcash, and you need to try and give it a try. And I think we, as very successful Bitcoiners that made millions of dollars, should throw back the money in debt, not in houses, not in Lamborghinis, not in whatever you think that is necessary to become happy. No, in building a better future for the next generation, and that's what we do by supporting these projects. I just want to build. I want to build back better.
Well, speaking of, I know there's a tension in the technologist community right now around Lightning Network. I know that you are traveling and kind of using Bitcoin as your full kind of system. As an end user, are you using Lightning when you onboard to people? Is it something that you find practical and useful? Do you buy into the FUD around this? Because we're 8 years into building this L2, and people have different ideas.
So for me, it's positive, but that is because I had 3 years ago, I opened a Bitcoin beach bar in Portugal. So I just bought a bar on the beach and I said, this is the Bitcoin beach bar. And it was even on the newspaper of the New York Times, on the front page and everything. And I started to just accept Bitcoin. You could only pay with Bitcoin. So people all needed to convert to their Lightning. So what they could do at my bar, which is of course illegal, that's why the bar is closed, is they could give me cash and I would top up their Lightning wallet. And then, of course, they would be able to spend their Lightning. So I saw the use case of Lightnings 2 summers or 4 months. I ran that beach bar and people were all paying with Lightnings. Even the kids of the parents of the Bitcoiners, they all want to pay with. So it was practical, usable for me. So I proved at that moment, yeah, it works. It works. Just the education was missing, and the education is still missing. That's also why in the last 1.5, 2 years, I completely shifted everything I'm doing in this industry because I also understand I'm an influencer, a YouTuber, an investor. But I also understand that there will be a moment I will be replaced by AI and I'm going to stop. So the last 1.5 years, I've been just creating educational value in educational platforms, educational YouTube videos that will be there online forever. When I stop or when I'm replaced, there will be free education for all those people in Bitcoin, including Lightning, including the adoption, including the mindset, including trading, whatever it is. I think we the biggest mistake that we all made in this whole industry is that we didn't copy the banks. The success formula from the banks is very easy. They got you into the bank system when you were 12 years old by a piggy bank. That's how you got in. What do? We focus on 18 plus. We need to focus on the kids. They have the future. So we need to focus and build technologies that children can start use because they will have the future. They are the ones that are important that they will say in the future, I'm not going to use a traditional bank. I'm using Bitcoin already all my life. So I think that's a huge thing that we missed. And I think that's what I'm doing now. I'm investing a lot in education just to be sure that people really understand that they can use Bitcoin as gold. You can use Bitcoin as a currency. You can use Bitcoin now as a collateral to get a loan, to buy a house, whatever it is. I think that education is very important at the moment.
Well, speaking of the moments, it does feel like in the United States, at least, I know you're abroad traveling, that stable coins are about to go very mainstream. So obviously, Bitcoiners, opposed to the idea, mostly in theory, right? This is we're looking at a future where essentially the United States is investing a lot into expanding the U.S. dollar kind of usage around the globe through stable coins. Maybe even getting kids to start using it as well through some of these applications. I think in the next couple of years, it's probably going to be mainstream in the U.S. with some of this regulation. How do you look at what's happening as a global citizen?
Yeah, as a global citizen, I was never fond of the United States, but I became fond of the United States since what is happening now during the Trump administration. I think this is the U.S. crypto week. I think there's 3 bills that's going to be passed this week, I believe. I think those bills are very important. One of them is that stablecoin genius, I think it is, that is going to maybe pass. The other one, which I think is really more important, is the act that goes against the Fed creating a central bank's digital currency. So that combination is a very powerful combination. If that really will be signed this week, then I think we are getting a little bit more closer to my Bitcoin maxi view of the future. No central bank digital currency that will be very centralized, but yes, maybe a stable coin created on the Bitcoin blockchain, that is like completely decentralized. So I'm fond of that because I do understand that stable coins have a use case, especially in safety wise to people. People feel more safe if they have a currency that is one-to-one with a fiat currency. Also that will take like 20 years, and then people don't calculate in euros or dollars anymore. We used to calculate in Dutch guilders. We used to calculate in British pounds. Now we are calculating in US dollars. I think in the far future, we will be calculating still in Bitcoin.
So even as someone who's more concerned about kind of the moral, ethical stuff, you have this dollar, you're putting in a stable coin. It's some company's going to buy a treasury bill. They're buying government debt. You don't feel any. You would still use the stable coin in that case.
I don't think it's changing what is already happening. I think that most governments already do that with the dollar and everything. At least now, maybe with the stable coin, it depends on what law is being created. Those companies can't keep printing that stable coin. Then it really becomes a stable coin backed by a liquid asset, like dollars were backed by gold in the old days. So if that will be a stable coin that really is backed by a real world asset or any other liquid asset, then I think that will have a better future than the dollar that is being printed out of thin air or the euro that's being printed out of thin air. So in the beginning, yes, but in the end, it will make the economy worldwide better because it's less printable, so it's less fake. So I think yes, it will do good for the world, but like with everything, the internet was also intended to be very good for the world, and it's always people that use it in the right way, and it's people that use it in the wrong way. And that's also with Bitcoin. Some use it in the right way, some use it in the wrong way, and it's also going to be with the stable coins. People tend to use it the way they want to use it, and I think that's the beauty of decentralization, that people can do that, and that they are not like obliged to be doing it in a certain way exactly. We need to have freedom in every aspect of life, in my opinion. And I think it's very important also when it comes to stablecoins. Yeah.
Well, winding down here, I know we're at all-time highs. Your story is so impactful for so many people who look at your lifestyle and they say, I want that. You're living the. I talked to Isaac Miller a few weeks ago, and I said, you're when people think about the OG Bitcoiner, you're what they want. They want to be like skinny dipping in Iceland and kind of doing all the fun stuff. Is it possible, you think, for people to get in today to replicate what you've experienced in your lifestyle, or do you think it was just a product of you being early?
No, no, I'm not early. We are all early. We are like a 3% adoption at the moment. That's like the 90s of the internet or any other technology. That's like, um, it all has to do with what do you believe? You know, in my opinion, I look at the world as a $900 trillion market cap, of which $2 trillion is in Bitcoin. So if we get 10% of all those other, the real estate, the stocks, and everything into Bitcoin, we might have a 90 trillion market cap. So that's times 45 from here and the next maybe three bull markets. But it means that 100K will be maybe even 10 million in the far future. And if you really believe that, why would you leave your money in a bank account that is destroying your purchasing power and is killing all the generational wealth that you could create? So for me, yes, I still think that Bitcoin should be done in a wise way. So yeah, we will see a bull market top towards the end of the year, October. I think 160K. After that, we need to wait for the bear market crash. No, I think the bear market crash will be there. I'm not a believer of a super cycle. There will always be people selling and taking profits. And then the next bear market, I would again go all in. I would again go all in around 60 to 80K. I would fully sell all the things I have to again go all in and ride the next ride to maybe 500K times 10, maybe that one in 2029, maybe in 2033, even $1 million per Bitcoin. That's a 10x result from now in 8 years' time. There is no other market I'm able to do this. So for me, yes, there's still a lot of people that have generational wealth and overvalue in their bricks in their houses that they don't use. The banks are using your overvalue. Sell that house, take the overvalue, buy Bitcoin, run the first bull market, use the Bitcoin as collateral to buy whatever you want again, and run the second bull market, and you multiply your Bitcoins and you create generational wealth. So for me, yeah, I would always do it. I'm really an all-in guy. It's for me, it's to be or not to be. So it's
Yeah,
and then you have the money working for you, and when the money starts to work for you, you can enjoy life to the fullest. I always end my video with like, you need to like zoom out in Bitcoin, look at that bigger cycle, zoom in at life, enjoy every single minute of the day. People are stressing about every single movement in the chart. Why? Give it 4 years. There's never been 4 years later that Bitcoin was lower, it was always higher. Stress that much about a life, stress that much about not running the hamster wheel, stress that much about really grabbing life by the balls, the bull by the horns, and living life to the full. That is way more important than stressing about those charts, because Bitcoin will do its job. It's working for you. You need to have the capital work for you and not work for capital.
Well, I'll give you one more question. I'm always curious about this. I talk to people a lot about, what the future of Bitcoin will look like. So curious for your answer. And it seems that humans are pretty bad at predicting the future generally, right? We kind of know where things are going, but then the descriptions are kind of bad, right? I think that, you talk to somebody in the 1800s, they might think, why are there no balloon cities?
Yeah.
Why are floating cities in the sky with, with flying cars? But, we also live in the houses, you have a computer with you, I have a computer, we're surrounded by machinery that improved our lives, even if it wasn't exactly kind of what we thought in our heads, right? Our imagination. So as you think about the future, talked about a million per coin, 2030, 2040. What's the world like? Or what do you think will change about people's day-to-day experiences?
So for me, the future is going to be very simple, because everybody is always talking about the Bitcoin market cap and the amount of people we have in the world. Like we have like 8 billion people. But people forget that Bitcoin is the first time ever in our lives that can be used by machines and AI. And we can see Elon Musk, and we can see all of these people creating robots. All these robots can have their own Bitcoin wallet. All the cars can have their own Bitcoin wallet. All the fridge can have their own Bitcoin wallet. Everything that is not human can have a own Bitcoin wallet. Just the future for me is me running around with my telephone and a Bitcoin wallet, stepping into a car, paying the car that's self-driving in Bitcoin. The car does its thing. When that car needs a repair, the car will drive into a garage, pay the garage robot arm again in Bitcoins. the use case of Bitcoin is not humans. The use case of Bitcoin is every entity in the world that's going to be created from now. And we can see how quickly they are being created. And if I want to tip my robot for serving me, I can't do that in dollars and euros. I need to be able to do that in Lightning Network, Bitcoins, or whatever in the future. So for me, that is the clear future. Decentralization in real estate, houses. I think ownership will not be important anymore. Either it will be taken by the governments or you give it up and you live a freedom, digital nomad lifestyle using the sharing economy. I think that we as Bitcoiners, in the end, I think even houses will become an own entity. I think a house will be owning itself. I will be the one that lends the money to the house to buy itself. And then everybody that wants to use the house pays the house each and every day. And if the house needs to be repaired, it will pay it from its wallet to the carpenter, to whatever it is to repair the house. I think at the moment, the last decades, we were fully focused on owning as much as possible, like becoming fully packed, not being able to travel anymore. And I think now that we are disconnecting jobs from cities again, being able to be a digital nomad, we need less less baggage on their back. And that's when decentralization slowly happens. That's why we now we share cars. That's now we share these motor scooters. That's why we share everything. And that's going to be bigger and bigger and bigger in the future. And then ownership is not important anymore. And then I think it becomes very important to have a big Bitcoin wallet to be able to use everything in the world that you want to use. I think that's the future. It's yeah.
Well, I can't wait for my house to fix itself. We'll talk about what I've been doing the last couple of weeks. Didi, where can people find out more about what you're up to? Where can they follow you on your socials?
Just on the website. We have the website, thebitcoinfamily.com, and my socials is just my full name, like you see in the screen, Didi Taihuttu. It's on X and Instagram. Yeah, we all have the same socials name everywhere. So please be aware, we only have verified accounts. All the others are scam accounts. My YouTube, I make daily YouTube videos. I would really love you guys to subscribe. I'm not even at 100K subscribers at the moment, 95K. I want to reach 100K this bull market. I would really be thankful if people would subscribe to my YouTube channel, because that's where I share the message about charts, but also about life and about everything else that we do as a family.
Didi, thanks for being on. I've wanted to have the conversation for a while. Glad we can make it happen. Go to Didi's channel, smash that subscribe button over there. Come back to the Supply Shack channel, smash that like and subscribe over there. If you're getting us via email, be sure to check out our reader survey. Always looking for feedback about how we could be serving you better, bringing more stories about Bitcoin in the past and its present. Of course, we'll be at Digital Asset Summit London in October, going over to Europe to evangelize Bitcoin where maybe it's needed more. Didi, once again, thanks for being on. This has been Supply Shack, the Blockworks podcast.
Thank you so much, Pete.